Welcome to Yes Quit Your Day Job, real talk for music industry creatives. Today's guest is an absolute force, Lucia Cifarelli. You may know her as the frontwoman of KMFDM or from her breakout band, Drill, but today, we're diving into her most personal and powerful chapter yet, her new solo album, No God Here. Fresh off tour with Lords of Acid, Lucia joined Seven to talk about reinvention, raw truth, and what it takes to hold your ground in an industry that often just wants you to sit down and smile. From the early days of major label chaos to finding creative freedom on her own terms, this one is packed with wisdom, fire, and a few stories you've probably never heard before. Let's get into it.
All right, there we go. All right, welcome to Yes Quit Your Day Job. Today I have Lucia Cifarelli with me. Lucia, for those in our audience that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm the lead singer in a band called KMFDM. I also do a lot of the writing in that band, and I'm also a solo artist as well. I just put out my third solo album in October. It was a Kickstarter. It's the first where I wrote all the songs myself.
Oh, wow.
And I just came off the Lords of Acid tour as an opening act in the US where we saw each other and got to hang out. Yeah. So I'm a recording artist, a live performer, a songwriter, and that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome. So you mentioned you were just opening for Lords of Acid.
Cookie, sorry. I'm not going to get rid of this dog.
Dog barking is totally acceptable. We allow that on this podcast.
Okay, good. All right.
I think it adds to production value. So anybody can argue that if they want. But what was that experience like for you personally and creatively on the Lords of Acid tour performing your new solo album?
It was crazy. It was different. It was fantastic in so many ways and really hard in others. It was the first time that I was ever on a stage without a band.
Wow. Okay.
So right there, that was something that was challenging in the beginning because I was presenting the material in a way that I never imagined I would with backing tracks. So that was definitely a concern how I was going to be able to pull that off. But after the first show, I was like, okay, I've got a lot of space up here. As long as everybody, can hear everything, a good mix, then it should be cool. And I worked with a visual artist from Chicago to create a visual wall so that I wouldn't feel so alone and that there would be some accompaniment to the songs. And, it felt really good up there. So it wasn't the exact KMFDM audience that I normally perform to. It was surprisingly different. I always imagine that Lords of Acid is kind of adjacent to, it's not the same, but it feels adjacent. But I learned that a lot of people had no idea who I was. So I was making some new fans along the way, which was exciting. But it was also challenging because I wasn't just an opener, but I was one of the first openers. So I'm really warming up the crowd at that point for the people that are just trickling in. People are.
I've been in those shoes with you.
I know you have. Right? It was humbling.
Yeah.
Humbling.
I mean, so even speaking of that, though, like seeing you, obviously I've seen you a lot with KMFDM, having toured with you guys a couple of times and seeing you with your solo stuff. I'll be honest, I didn't realize because I've been moving and I've been a little off the radar. I didn't pay enough attention to the tour. I thought you were like part of Lords of Acid as a guest or something, right? I didn't realize that your solo thing. So when you came out, I had no idea what was what to expect. And I was blown away. I mean, you mentioned the visuals, they were just phenomenal. But
Thank
also,
you.
like, you're welcome. Yeah, but just contrasting, knowing your performance with KMFDM and then seeing you on your own, like I would never have guessed there was any trepidation or like, I mean, you looked like you were right at home, exactly where, you know, in your comfort zone. So that was somebody who knows what your performance is. That was my perspective. I can only
Oh,
imagine.
good.
Yeah, like people that are hearing you and seeing you for the first time, I'm sure they were equally impressed. So, yeah.
Well, it was scary, you know, because there was a lot on the line. I was going out without a band. I was going out as a solo artist, and if I didn't pull it off just, then I would get slaughtered and it would leave a very bad impression on KMFDM. So I was doing everything that I possibly could to ensure that I could pull this off. I was rehearsing for months because, you know, I'm not a flawless singer. And if you look at any of the live footage, I mean, you'll see that I'm not a flawless singer. I can be pitchy, but I really wanted to not have to think about that too much. So I wanted to make sure that I knew the songs backward and forwards, because sometimes, like a lot of folks, you know, when you're in the moment and you're nervous, you forget words, right?
Yeah.
I got something in my eye. So, and that happens to me sometimes with songs with KMFDM that I've sang like a million times, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, but you can kind of get away with that if you're on stage with a lot of people, because the audience is always looking at something else.
Right.
They're not solely focused on you, but I'm like, shit, I'm going to be up here alone. So if I screw this up, they're not going to be looking anywhere else. Maybe they'll be looking at the screen. So I worked really hard to memorize the songs backwards and forwards, and I made sure to rehearse, warm up before every show, which was incredibly challenging because I didn't have a dressing room most of the time, and I was
Yeah.
out. I had to do it outside in like 115-degree weather heat, and I was just sweating and
Oh,
singing in dust. I was like, I just had to do it. And sometimes I was in the bathrooms and anywhere I could warm up and just prepare for the show, I was doing it. So I'm so happy that it came off okay, and that, you know, I didn't make a fool of myself.
I think that's an understatement. I think it definitely came off okay. Was there a moment on this tour where you felt totally connected to the audience, where you thought like yes, this is why I'm doing this
Every night.
every night? Cool.
Every night, because, you know, the one thing that I can say um, about being on tour all these years is that KMFDM has played in front of crowds where the room was full, and we've also played in front of crowds where there was like nobody there. I mean, we played in Banff, Canada,
Oh wow.
back in the early 2000s, and we were up in the mountains, and I think there were 15 people in the audience. I've always said, we've always said, um, you know, you got to put on the same show for 10 people that you would put on for 10,000. It's got to be the same. You can't,
Absolutely.
you have to give it 110% every time. So on those nights, and there were a few where I was like, oh dear, you know, there's really not that many people here. I would really put myself forward and draw them closer to me. And, you know, if I have people in front of me, that's all I care about. You know,
Yeah.
if I have one person to communicate these messages to and to perform to, um, I'm going for it. I mean, I think the worst thing that ever happens is if somebody yawns. You know, if somebody's standing in front of you and they yawn, then you're like, fuck. You know?
We're not
I'm
entertaining. Or?
boring them. I'm boring them. I'm here to entertain you, and you're tired. So that's like the only thing when there's so few people, you really notice everything that you feel everything that's coming back to you
Yeah,
instantly.
I think sometimes the crowd doesn't realize that like they see us, but we can see them too most of the time, you know? Like,
I know. I know. And I'm embarrassed to say that the two people that I noticed that were yawning on this tour happened to be my friends that I invited. So
I was not one of them. I
so
was not yawning.
so
Wow.
I was really angry about that. But I have to say one of my favorite shows, and it wasn't just because it was the last show, but it was different. Las Vegas. I really felt so much love in Vegas. I mean, I
Yeah.
felt love in a lot of places, but I think that might have had something to do with the fact that we played Sick New World. KMFDM played Sick New World not too long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
So, and Little Miss Nasty had a residency at that venue. So they brought in a lot of people. And of course, Lords of Acid has their fan base. So it was, people came out early to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed that show, like a little bit more than a lot of the others, because people were just so present and ready for it. So yeah, it was cool.
Vegas is like a second home for me. I've lived there a few times. I actually, I'm in San Diego now, but I just had moved from Vegas.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and so it's most of my closest friends are there. And one thing I will say, like they show up in Vegas. Like the community there really appreciates music and bands and art, and they will show up. So I'm not surprised you had a good experience there.
Well, something really cool happened. As I said, there were a lot of venues where I didn't have a dressing room and I didn't have anywhere to like go and warm up my voice or change. And I just felt a little bit out of place. Where do I situate myself? And when we got to Vegas, there was a backstage area, like a communal backstage area where everybody, uh, not everybody, Lords of Acid had a place, but Little Miss Nasty and I was allowed to go back there. So I did have a place, but there was a girl who was working there who was, I guess, the manager of that area, that venue. She said, "You're Lucia from KMFDM." And I was like, "Yes, I am. Hi." And she said, "I am such a big fan, and my mom is a huge
Oh,
fan. And is there anything that I can do for you?" And I said, "Well, it's great that I have a place that I could change. I was just wondering, is there anywhere besides the public bathroom where I could like warm up my voice?" She's like, "I got you. Come with me." So she takes me through, when you go from Area 51, there's what is that whole wonderland of
oh,
lights and
yeah. There's
Meow Mix and all these cool
meow wolf.
places,
Yeah, yeah,
Meow Wolf or whatever. I've never been in there.
yeah.
I was like,
Mix.
wow, this is great. And then she takes me through there upstairs into some private, she unlocks this door, the doors open, and it's this huge, it was like the size of a gymnasium filled with all sorts of costumes from all the
Oh,
shows
wow.
and open space. And she said, "If you just open your mouth in here, the echo is amazing." And she said, she's like, "It's all yours. Just lock the door when you're done." So I had the opportunity to warm up in this incredible atmosphere. And so it just set the tone for the whole day for me, and I
Yeah.
just loved it. And then I ate the best Chinese food I ever had in my life in Vegas at
Which
China
you do in
Mama.
Vegas. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Vegas. The Chinese food, just the food in general, it's affordable and it's some of the best
Yeah.
I think in the country for sure. Other than maybe
Yeah, it
New
was a
Orleans.
lot of fun.
I'm partial to New Orleans.
Yes, I had excellent food in New Orleans. I mean, that was one of the most fun parts of the store. I was like, I'm going on early. I can like eat. I can go out to
Yeah.
dinner. Like
Right.
restaurants are still going to be open. No, it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
I love that. Well, let's talk about No God Here. What sparked the writing of this record? Like, where were you emotionally or mentally when it started?
Well, it was, where was I mentally? I mean, when I started conceptualizing the album, I was thinking about the places that I go on a solo record versus the places I go on a KMFDM record.
Sure.
And, a solo record for me is much more personal. I mean, I'm personal on a KMFDM record, but I'm thinking collectively in the context of what needs to happen in the band, what are the
Yeah, yeah.
best. But selfishly, when you make a solo record, you don't have to take those things into consideration. You can really dig into yourself. And so what I wanted to do with this record was I wanted to think about the experiences in my life, but those themes that touch people on a broad level. I've met a lot of people along the way on my travels, and a lot of the things that have happened in my life have happened in their life too. Trauma, just pain, disappointment, disillusionment in the world, and optimism through it as well. Just the fighting spirit, the underdog. And I think that the artwork, which I made for the album cover, really started to set up a lot of themes that I was going to cover on the album. Yeah. I so I'd written a couple of songs for the record, and then I encountered the Wasps. They were looking for somewhere warm, I guess, in the winter. And I woke up one morning and they were all over the floor. There were thousands of them all over the floor. I was terrified, but they were dead. They were dead. And then I got very sad, and I thought, I have to figure out, I don't want to just scoop them up and throw them in the garbage. I need to figure out a way to, make their death honorable somehow. So I decided to gild their wings in gold leaf and create artwork for them. And as I was doing that, I was starting to think about, like, what is the spiritual meaning of the wasp, and started digging into that. And then I stumbled upon the Japanese art of kintsugi. I don't even know if I'm kintsugi. I'm not pronouncing that right. It's the art of, they take broken pottery and they enforce it with gold and make it stronger. And all of these ideas, from the spiritual meaning of the wasp to this Japanese technique of repairing pottery and making it stronger and beautiful, really resonated with me in a lot of ways of the work that I do on myself, and that I encourage in other people to kind of use their trauma as a springboard to empower themselves and make themselves stronger. Because although we all have similar, to some degree, experiences, it's all very personal. And I've always felt like the weakest link in the chain, whether it's in a band or intellectually or in the music business or vocally. I've always felt like not like my stuff isn't strong enough or as strong as the others. So these ideas, my daily practices, my meditations, these have all made me turn these feelings into something powerful, because it's authenticity, right? So I want to use my vulnerability as an inspiration to other people, because so many folks who encounter me in KMFDM think I'm this really strong, fierce force, and they don't get to see that there's a lot of work that goes into being able to stand up like that. And so the songs on the album really peel back the layers to tell a story about the other side, and No God Here is really a song for everybody who's ever felt cast aside or orphaned or forgotten, whether you're in a war-torn country or, a fractured family, or, it's a song for the underdogs. you know
Wow.
and then there's the songs of faith, like Believe and Dark Horse, and I'm trying to be light in other moments because you have to have levity. So yeah, I think the record just started taking shape through all these moments that it snowballed for me. And by the time I was done, I thought, okay, well, there's a lot of things that are there in order for me to promote this. But I'll be honest with you, Seven, I'm such a creative person. I'm either in the studio writing, recording, or on tour. So I'm on social media to a certain degree, but I don't really feel like I'm a tap dancer for TikTok. Somebody's
Right.
changing clothes. Like I'm not really entertaining in any other way other than making music or being on stage. So a lot of these things are, I've missed the boat on some of them. So being able to go out on tour after creating this record was such a high for me, and a great opportunity to be able to complete the cycle of writing the record, doing the artwork and the videos, and then being able to take it out in front of people and perform it and just complete the circle,
And have
so.
that connection in person and see it resonate with people.
And it
Yeah.
did. I mean, there were
Yeah.
some people that cried. Oh, no, God, here. I was like, shit. Wow, good. I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
make anybody sad, but the whole point is
I
to kind of
yeah, I mean, I
prove to
don't even think
people.
it's yeah, I don't even think it's sad. It's just such a it's such a powerful record, but also like everything you just said is such I think it really resonates with a lot of people, because you're right. And I think the way a lot of people perceive you, especially in KMFDM, is this, almost larger than life, strong, powerful, front woman. And I think some people could be like, wow, I could never do that. I could never be like that. And so I think being a little bit vulnerable and showing this other side of your art lets people in a little bit, go, wait a minute, if these are some of the same things I deal with. Like, if she's able to do that, maybe I could do that. So I think it's incredibly powerful and empowering.
Well, that's all I want to do, because that's really all I have to bring. I mean, if I can only bring to the party, okay, I have my stuff that I have gone through in my life, and it's similar to a lot of other people's, and that stops them in their tracks, right? We get stopped in our tracks by so many things that happen to us, and we let it
Yeah.
eat away at us and hold us back and prevent us from kind of becoming the people that we could be. And I'm my own worst enemy. There's nobody that hates me more than myself at times. I'll rise
Yeah.
up to a certain level. And then I'll do something to like cut myself off at the knees. I'll be singing. I went out there and I was singing really great. And then I came home and I started smoking cigarettes. you know, it's like, I think it was Alan Watts, or maybe it was somebody else. Do you know who Alan Watts is? He's a
I
really
don't.
interesting, he's not around anymore, but he's a spiritual teacher, and he's knows every religion and has walked every path. And I think it was him or one of his contemporaries that said, we kind of get our shit together and we get to the next level, and then we have to break it all down, destroy it, and start again, and then get to the next level. so
There's truth
so
in that.
so, or something to that effect. So I guess if I can represent anything, it would be, the surviving spirit, the fighter, the underdog, and just to keep pushing forward and use all of everything that happens, and turn it into something positive, turn it
Yeah.
into a work of art.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So going back a little bit further, Drill was your breakout band. What do you remember most about that era and breaking into the scene in the 90s?
Wow, that was a great time. It was a lot of fun. Drill toured with Stabbing Westward, Marilyn Manson, God Lives
Yeah.
Underwater, and like MC5. We did a lot of cool shit. And I think one of the most impressive things about that time was um, just the diversity in the music. You know, we talk about diversity in uh, identities now, but I don't find the musical landscape to reflect that now as much as it did then. There was for me, or maybe I'm wrong and I'm just not as aware of everything that's going on now, but my perception is that back in that time, there were so many different types of artists and there was a place for all of them. You know, my influences are across the board and I could find those at that time on any radio station
Yeah.
or in any, you know what I mean? Or at any venue. They were just available at any given time. And um, it just, record stores, there were more of those. And I love tangible music, things that I can hold and feel. And I miss that. You know, the digital era is wonderful in many respects, but I'm into bespoke kind of hand tactile vinyl,
Yeah.
CDs, tapes, things like that. That's my era. So, of course, I'm nostalgic about that. And um, it seemed, although it's easier now to release music, it seemed easier then to kind of reach through the center and have a platform if you had the attention of a label. And at that time we did.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were able to do a lot more with our releases than I'm able to do right now with my solo release. You know what I mean?
That's so, yeah, I mean, to think about that, where, yeah, it's so weird to think about. Like, you would think now anybody could release an album, that it would be more accessible and it would be easier to really see your stuff get elevated. But I think because of that, there's so much being released that the fans aren't really tuned into it as much. Um, I still
Well,
go to
don't you?
go on.
Sorry.
I
Finish
was
your
just saying,
sentence.
yeah, I still like going into Amoeba Music takes me back to like going to record stores and just I'll sit there and just flip through the albums and look for bands I've never heard of and check out cool album art and stuff like that. You know, I can relate. I miss that experience.
Yeah, no, but you know, I think a lot of that is coming back in some respects. Like I have a daughter who's 17 and she's listening to songs from the 90s and she's like, "Oh my God, the music was so different then. It has so much more personality." And I'm like, "You think?" And I'm
Yeah,
always interested to hear what she thinks because, you know, she's living it now and her friends
sure.
are all a part of the digital era and they don't go to record stores. So, you know, when we're on tour, she looks at these things and she's like, "Wow, look at this. This is so cool." And, you know, so they love it. They're just not, they didn't grow up on it, but they love the experience of it. And she's just discovered my album From the Land of Volcanoes. And she's like, "Oh my
Yeah,
God, Mama, these songs are so good. Why didn't it never happen?" And I'm like, you know what? As I say all these things about how, um, you know, difficult it's been and is in current times for great music to break through. That's not necessarily true. I believe it takes like a team. And I think if you have the right people around you who know certain things, you can all come together and make shit happen. But
sure.
there's only so much that one person can do. So when I did this Kickstarter, I carried this thing on my back and I learned things that I never knew how to do before. And by the time I got this stuff shipped off, I had reached my limit and I was like, I just can't I can't learn anymore. I got to make a KMFDM record now. I have to move forward. If I had had a manager or somebody who, wanted to champion it and I had some assistance, I probably could have pushed it through a little bit more, but I didn't have those things because, I don't have those opportunities. I'm not 20 years old anymore. I never had a hit record, and there are perceptions about me that I can't control. It's just what it is. She's the girl from KMFDM, or she's the girl from blah, blah, blah. And she never did this and never did that, or did this and did that. You know what I mean? It's like, I've been around here a long time. People have all sorts of ideas that I can't control.
Good or bad, yeah.
Whatever. I'm still putting out good music.
Yep, absolutely. What how did your relationship with KMFDM begin? What did that tell me about that?
That happened at an excellent seat. Before I tell you that story, I just need to say, this is what I'm talking about with this whole record about, songs like Believe and Dark Horse. I'm telling the story about trying to connect with people about trauma and faith and the miraculous, because these things really exist. And people think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, if you do your work and you believe in what you do and you push yourself forward, the universe will bring things in.
100%.
They will bring things in. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't believe. They think, I'm not going to do the work because it doesn't matter anyway. I am a believer. If you walk towards what you want and you put in the effort and you keep walking that journey, things will come in. And that is exactly what happened with Sasha. It was very unexpected. I had recorded the second album for Drill with my band. And then there was a big merger that happened, and lots of bands got lost in the shuffle that didn't sell the right numbers. And, it was a clusterfuck. Everybody was being shuffled around, and we got lost. We got dropped. And my band broke up. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was a terrible, terrible time. And my phone rang out of the blue when I was moving apartments and empty boxes stacked up, and no idea what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. Was I going to work in Burger King? Because I'll be honest with you, I put my whole life into music. I started making demos when I was 14 years old. I was interning in recording studios. I never went to college. I made it out of high school by the grit of my teeth, and I didn't care. All I wanted to do was write songs. I cleaned bathrooms and nightclubs. I worked in studios and management and this and that just to pay for demos and make shit happen. I knew where I was going.
Yeah, you
but
put
I'll
in
tell
the work.
you, and then some. But I'll tell you right now, when I lost everything, it was a wake-up call, because it's like, where do I go from here? I have no education. I just had like a deal on a major label. I was traveling the world, and now the bottom has fallen out from me, and I'm starting from ground zero. That's scary.
Yeah.
I literally couldn't afford to eat more than one meal a day, and it was waffles, So it was not a good time.
Yeah.
And then the phone rang, and it was Sasha. And he said, hey, we're looking for a singer for MDFMK. I'm not doing KMFDM right now. I'm doing MDFMK. Would you be willing to fly to Seattle and maybe sing on a couple of tracks? One thing led to the other. I was on a plane to Seattle, and I was like so nervous. I blew up a $5,000 mic with one scream. I was just like, in the studio with a bunch of skeptical people who wouldn't look at me. And he's like, oh, what would you do to this? And I was like, I was like, gee, it smells like smoke in here. And they were all like, what? That was a Neumann, blah, 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 blah.
You're listening to Yes, Quit Your Day Job, hosted by Seven Dunbar. If you're enjoying the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who needs that creative kick in the teeth. For more episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and industry resources, visit yesquityourdayjob.com. And if you've got a question for the show, email us at boss@yesquityourdayjob.com. We might just feature it in an upcoming episode.
Yeah, I did that once. I was working with Chris Farena, and it was right after the first tour that we had done with KMFDM, and I met Chris on that tour, and we stayed in touch and decided we were going to work on an album together after the tour. And I went from Florida all the way to LA. First vocal session, he's like, "Oh, this, so-and-so company sent me this mic and we want to test it out, and let's use this really expensive fancy mic." And I broke it within the first minute. I was like, "Oh no."
Right. Hope you're insured.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, you could write them and say it broke. I'd blame it on me. I don't know, but yeah, I can relate to that."
So that's how that happened. And then, it stuck. And I worked on the rest of the record with them, and we did tour it. We toured. We even went to Japan for the Fuji Fest, which was wild. And then we segued into KMFDM, and they invited me to hang around for that and do more writing. And, I got a lot of shit for that from the fans, from the KMFDM fans, because it was okay for me to be there for a minute. But like when people realized like I was kind of sticking around, they were like, "Oh, who the fuck is she? Oh,
Oh yeah.
Yoko Ono." So it took a long time to win people over. And even to this day, I mean, there's still people that you can't win over because that's just the nature of the beast. But, I love KMFDM, and I really enjoy being a part of this band, and I think I contribute some good shit. So I'm happy that I've been able to stick around this long.
I mean, I would agree. I definitely appreciate your contributions to it for sure. Over the years, has your role with KMFDM changed, like either on stage or in the studio at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started out, we had Raymond in the
Yeah,
band. Raymond was out there. So I was definitely like a little bit more in the back
sure.
because, he was an early member, and he had more of a catalog of material to present, obviously, with the band. So, you know, I was more in the back, and but then over the years I started kind of coming to the front like the dark horse that I am. Because you can't keep a good thing down.
I like that.
Yeah, and the thing is I'm very good at what I do when it comes to writing. I've worked at it. Like I said, I started writing when I was 14, and I was interning in a recording studio where they were making some of the biggest records on the planet, from Taylor Dane. I mean, I watched her sing Tell It to My Heart, and Mariah Carey, and Twisted
Oh,
Sister
wow.
was making records in there, and Hall and Oates and Billy Joel and blah and blah and blah. So, the bar for me was high.
Yeah.
And I grew up with three older sisters and a brother. And so the radio was always playing in our house, and I really love music and I love songwriting. So I became obsessed with writing good songs. And I've written with loads of super talented people, that have written records that are timeless and will be played forever. And that's always been what I wanted to do, to write songs that stand the test of time. So I think what's kept me in KMFDM is that I have such a love of songwriting that when Sasha gives me a track, I don't just like play it and write it. Like, I obsess on this shit. I
Yeah.
lock myself away and I get inside of it, and I'm trying to peel it apart as best as I possibly can. And I take it very seriously. I have fun with it and I love it. And, Airhead on the last album from Let Go took me took me quite a while because I was hearing so many ideas and I had to be patient with it and, let it build. And then I had to pull back and I had to take it apart. And, I see songs like puzzles and,
Yeah.
they have to come apart and you have to put them together and then you have to break them down. And so I really love that. Like some people like to play crossword puzzles and do math. I like to write songs and just really stretch and pull and notes and syllables, and that's my thing. So I think that's what's kept me in the band, because I really love what I do, and I think that Sasha appreciates that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. What's it like collaborating with Sasha, both professionally and personally? Like, how do you keep that creativity in both of those spaces?
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's true. Those that play together stay together, I guess. I mean, we work really well. Um, we started out working professionally. Our personal relationship came later down the line.
Sure.
So we were very comfortable writing and performing on stage before we got involved. Um, the songwriting is something that was different when I started working with Sasha and Tim, because I was in New York and they were in Seattle. So that was
Oh
actually the
yeah.
very first time that I collaborated separate. Like before that, when I would write with the band, drill, or with other songwriters in New York or LA or whatever, it was always in the room. So the first time I ever came up with a melody and lyrics independent of my collaborators was in that project. And I loved it. It was so liberating. I thought, oh my God, finally, it's not like playing charades, when you're in a room with people and you're writing, everybody's rushing to come up with the first idea. And, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I got a word. Oh, I got this. And for my brain, I don't work that fast. I need to kind of really get inside of myself and think about things. So I enjoyed that. And then when we all worked, when I moved to Seattle and we had an opportunity to be writing in the same room, Sasha was always saying, why don't you just take the track? And what do you think of this idea? And I'd say, oh, I like that. And he'd go, well, why don't you just take it, go and do your thing on it and then come back. And I was like, wow, this is so liberating. I don't have to
Well,
sit here and flesh it out with you. And he's like, no, just go and figure it out and then bring it back. And if I like it, we'll record it. And if I don't, go give it another try, or I'll get involved. So it was the first chance that I ever had to really hear my own thing. So now it's the same way. He'll bounce a track over to me and I'll work on the melody and the lyric, and then I'll go up and, he'll be like, great, I love it. And we'll lay it down. Or he'll say, I love the verse, I don't like the chorus. Or he'll say, I love it all, but I think I have an idea also to thread through it.
Wow.
So yeah, and because we have like a kind of shorthand now after all these years, so we can really like look each other in the eye and be like, dude, that sucks. It
And
just
no, their
sucks.
feelings hurt, and it's not
No,
personal. That's such a great.
no,
Yeah,
no. I mean, I think Amnesia with that song, I must have like written, wrote and rewrote that song like 10 times before he was like, yeah, that's good. And then I was like, I don't think any of it's good. And he's like, no, it's good. And then I was like, I can't even listen to it. I don't even like it. And then he's like, oh, you're going to like it. And then he disappears with it and it comes back. And I'm like, wow, that turned out really well.
that's just like that's like magic. Is what that is. That's
Right.
and
There's
how
some
cool.
songs just
Yeah, and I mean, how cool from early on for for him to KMFDM has been his baby for decades, but for him to have that faith in you and in your talent, just to go, yeah, take it home, go mess with it, see what happens. Um, I think I think he saw what you were capable of, and just such an amount of trust, and to give you that freedom, I guess, to really reach your full potential in that songwriting.
And I'm so glad that you see that, because, a lot of people miss that. If it wasn't for him doing that, I would not be the songwriter that I am today.
Wow.
It's because, and I'm not blowing smoke up his ass. I'm just basically saying, if people don't allow you the freedom to really express yourself the way you hear something and really take it full circle, take an idea full circle, you never get to really push yourself. So if you're always having somebody kind of bring your ideas to a close too soon, you never get to realize the full potential of what they could be. And I have had the opportunity to really stretch myself in this band because I have been given no guardrails. It's like,
Yeah.
tell me what you're thinking. Show me what you got. And when you're given that kind of freedom, you always want to deliver and you want to exceed anybody's expectations. So you work harder and harder and you want to exceed your own expectations. But the great thing about working with KMFDM is that Sasha's always giving me ideas that challenge me, that take me out of my comfort zone.
Where the magic happens.
So I have to really push myself and see, what can I do with this? This is really unexpected. He's given me stuff on this record that I'm like, those are very different rhythms. I'm not really comfortable in that. He's like, yeah, but that's good, right? It's good to be uncomfortable. And then, because now you got to try something different. You got to go this way. You can't
He's
always
a
go
smart
this
guy.
way.
He definitely is.
So I think it's fun working together with somebody that you know so well, because you're not tiptoeing around anybody's ego. When you work closely for a long time with somebody, you can really just tell it like it is.
Good. Yeah.
So,
You mentioned something and it got me thinking and just more curious than anything. Like collaborating. So when was that MDFMK album? That was like 2001-ish, 2002, somewhere around there?
yeah,
Maybe 2000?
2000, I think it was 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think like you and I are having conversation. We're on opposite sides of the world right now, and it's like it's nothing, right? But think about it, 25 years ago, what was that collaborate? Like how did you do that? How were you able to collaborate being on completely different sides of the country?
Well, I remember, if I'm remembering this correctly, I sang a lot of ideas over the phone.
Wow.
And yeah, and I think I was still at the tail end of a moment where I had access to a studio that the band was using, and I went in there and I laid something down. I might have laid one song down and was able to, record it somewhat properly, but a lot of stuff I sang over the phone. And
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, because when you were
yeah, and I
saying that,
was
I immediately thought I was like, I think we take for granted now, but like the ability to record at home, like I remember I was working, I had a Korg Triton and a hard disk recorder, a DAT
yeah,
recorder, and I have my little Electribes, and I'm like,
right.
daisy chaining MIDI sequencers, and like the
Right.
concept, yeah, like the concept of recording at home. Like, oh, I have an idea. Let me just record vocals in my living room in 2000. I would have been like, what magic are you talking about? Like, that's not a thing, you know? You have to have access to a
Yeah.
studio or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's the beauty of now. You can just open GarageBand or Pro Tools or Logic or whatever medium you work in and just get it happening. I mean, that's the beauty of now, but there's also other challenges that people face,
Yeah.
so. But anyway, it was a pretty cool way to work in a way, because you had to have a lot of imagination, right?
Yeah.
You had to listen to something and instantly know. That's how good his ears are. That's how good you know if you hear a song. I mean, if somebody can sing you something through the phone and you're like, yeah.
I'm sitting here like thinking back to that record, and I'm like, wait, all those cool like lo-fi filters, was that just through how that happened?
No, well, no, the idea is, the general humming of the songs, but they killed it in the studio. They just, Sasha,
Yeah. Oh, that's
crazy.
awesome. You've always had a real strong sense of like voice and identity. Was there ever a time when the industry or people around you like wanted to dim that, and how did you respond to that?
Oh, I was terrible when I started out. I mean, I had the worst voice in the whole world. I was always a good songwriter. I really was. I have a sense of melody and lyrics that was, of course, it was very underdeveloped when I started out, but it was clear that you could hear that. But I had a
Yeah.
terrible voice. Um, I was carrying a lot of baggage from my upbringing and had a lot of doubts. And so I would get all choked up and I wouldn't be able to project. And so I made a pretty bad impression early on, and a lot of people just thought I sucked.
Oh.
And I think a lot of people that thought I sucked then still think I suck now, because first impressions stick. So yeah, I've had a hard time winning people over. I went from having people tell me I sounded like Madonna to having people um, just say, "Oh, you just scream," So, but I think one of the biggest compliments I ever got in my life was from Diamanda Galaz when
Oh, I love
we played a festival together. I think, where was that? I want to say it was in Belgium, maybe it was in France. I can't remember, but I saw her, and just to go back in time, she was the one who kind of changed the whole trajectory of my vocal styling, because my sister was diagnosed with HIV,
Oh,
and I had been before that kind of singing mediocre material, and I met somebody who was like, you need to like really use what's going on in your life and like dig deep. And do you know who this woman Diamanda Galaz is? And I was like, no, I never saw her. So he got me tickets and we went to go see the show, and it was Plague Mass, and I was just gobsmacked. I was like, holy shit. And this was before my sister was diagnosed, well, or around that time, I guess. And then I started having to get more and more involved with her treatment, and she was my best friend. And then I started letting the experience really sink into me, and it started coming out in the writing.
wow.
So and that's when I ended up getting my first deal with A&M, because I actually had a point of view.
Yeah.
But fast forward all these years later, KMFDM is playing a festival and she's there, and I'm like, this woman changed my whole life. I'm going to tell her. So I saw her backstage standing outside alone. I was like, she's alone. She's alone. I'm going out there. And they say never meet your heroes, and because it's always disappointing. But I went out there and I introduced myself, and she said, I know who you are. And I was like,
Wow.
what? And she said, I really like what you do. And I was like, I have to tell you, I saw you. My sister was sick, and you changed my life, and this and that. And she like put her hand on my face. And it was that moment that I was like, you know what? If I can get validation from other artists and the fans and the people, I don't give a shit what the industry thinks of me. You
Yeah.
know what? They can tell me I suck, but when I'm standing in front of an audience and I see how they respond to what I'm doing, I know that I don't.
Yeah.
And when I meet a hero like Diamanda Galaz, and she tells me she knows who I am and she thinks I'm doing a good job, I don't care what the industry thinks of me.
Oh, I love
I would
that.
have liked, I would have liked to have like gotten further as a solo artist and stuff. But, like I said earlier, I can't control the narrative of what a bunch of small-minded gossips have to say about me because they thought I sucked, or maybe they didn't like who I fucked, or, these are
Yeah.
stories that happen in life.
Jeez.
I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be 55. I've lived a little.
Right. I I remember when I was like, man, I had to be like, I was like 13 or 14, and I had gotten this CD of Diamante Galas, and I don't remember the name of the album, but it was a blue cover with her photo, and it was just her on a piano, and it was like recorded live in a church,
Yes.
and it
Was that with
had.
John Paul Jones? Did she do that record with John Paul? Because I
I'm not
remember.
even I'm not even sure, but I just know it had covers on there like I put a spell on you, and like just these songs.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and
think that was with John Paul Jones. Yeah,
I
I
would
think
play
so.
that on repeat, and if you've heard that album, her vocal stylings are pretty unique, right?
They're
And
insane.
my aunt would come in my room and be like, "What are you listening to?" Because I'm like blasting it. It's just her just belting out, for 10 minutes straight. And I'm so, oh, you wouldn't understand it, just angsty teenager. And then I grew up and realized, no, most people don't understand this. This is weird to most people, but something about her music, even as a young kid, like really resonated with me. So that's so interesting. Like when you mentioned Diamante Glass, I was like, oh my God, you know about her? Like,
Oh yeah. Well, I was talking to a neuroscientist that I couldn't sleep one night, and I stumbled upon an article on some Harvard neuroscientist who was talking about sound and how you can change people's perception of ideas they have strictly through sound. And
interesting.
I and I've always known this. So I said, he said, you don't even, it's not even necessarily through the words that you're saying, but the tones that you're using. And I found this
Sure.
article so fascinating that I wrote to him, and he actually wrote me back, and we started having an entire, week-long dialogue about how music just gets into your soul and has a way of, you know, influencing your ideas about things just by the intonations and the way that things are being, the notes and the tones. And so when you say you didn't even really understand what was happening to you when you were listening to her voice, she has this incredible instrument that has the ability to just sink right into your soul. And that's what
Yeah.
she did to me. I didn't even know what she was singing when I saw her. I was a kid, and I'm like, oh my God. But it really touched me. So, I know exactly what you mean. I
Yeah.
really do. She's
I feel like
incredible.
that's the reaction when you first hear her is either like, oh my God, what is this? Or, oh my God, what is this? Like,
Yes.
um, yeah, yeah,
She could do
yeah.
all of these crazy things. I wasn't
Well,
trying to copy her in any way. I was just trying to find my own spirit voice,
yeah.
She
I think I'm gonna go listen to that record after we're done here. Real, just some quick fire questions in closing here. What's one city you'll always come back to?
New York.
New York. I love that. I I want to go to New York and explore more. I've been there on tour probably a dozen times at this point, but I've never got to like really be a tourist there and experience New York. And I think that's something I need to do.
Well, it's always changing. It's always changing, but for me, it's where I come from. So, it's a smell. It's like as soon as I get there, it's in the air. It's when as long as it's not summer and you're not smelling bad air, but in fall, you know, it's where I grew up. So it's home in a
Yeah.
way. It doesn't feel like home anymore because, I'm disconnected from it for so long. But it's still a place I will always return to.
I love that. What's one artist, living or dead, that you'd love to collaborate with?
Bob Dylan.
Wow, Bob, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. I don't know why I'm surprised by that, but I am.
Because although I'm making music that is very, it's got a lot going on, I still believe that a great song can be created with the simplest of instruments, and that if you can do it there, you can build it up in any kind of genre. So I would love to sit with one of the greatest songwriters in the world and have him play the guitar and let me write something. And if I could deliver something that passed the Bob Dylan test, then I would feel like I've really arrived as a songwriter, because I think because he's brilliant. And, when I write lyrics, I want to write in a way that isn't necessarily a paint by numbers storytelling, but I want to create tapestries of color with my lyrics that have metaphor and, create a movie in somebody's mind. And that's what he's always done for me. And I think it would be really fun to just sit down with a cat like that and sit with a guitar. See if I can pass the Bob Dylan test.
I love that, and I really want that to happen now. We have to.
Oh, I don't. You know what? I'm sure that is like a long shot, but yeah. I feel so far away from so many things, and when I see you, I'm so proud of you and you've come so far since those days when you got rolled on the East Coast somewhere. And you never made the show. Now I know this story.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you didn't know about that, but yeah, that's why we didn't
know. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I was like, what a dick. He didn't even show up for the biggest show on the tour.
No, we were there. We just didn't play.
7.
There's moments of that where I'm almost shocked I still have friends in the music industry because of just weird things like that have happened.
You know what? Things happen on the road. You just can't predict. All sorts of things happen.
Oh, geez.
Somebody did something terrible to Sasha once. Somebody put something in his drink, and he didn't even know. Like, we didn't even know if we were going to be able to play a show the next day.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
Ugh. Yeah, you just have to be so careful. People are lovely and wonderful until they're not.
Yeah, I learned that lesson. For the last question, I like to flip things a little bit and open it up where if there's a question you would like to ask me.
How in the hell did you end up with all of these Grammys?
So I think I was very fortunate, but I think it also has to do with some of the things that we talked about where I think just showing up and consistently being very focused on what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And it didn't really matter to me what the work was or what the hours were or how hard it was when an opportunity came, I said yes, and even
Good
in those
moments,
like even in those moments of doubt where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I would still say, yes, I'll figure it out. Like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And so it really started with me being just, so like one example would be the first platinum record I got was with an artist named French Montana. And I had been working in the studio and I was there till like 4 a.m. and I lived an hour away. I was in LA and I just wanted to go home. And as I'm driving home, my boss is like, hey, we got a session. It's like 10 a.m. Can you do it? And I'm like, that gives me enough time to go home, shower, eat breakfast, sleep for maybe an hour, and then come right back for an 18-hour day. And there was there was nothing that I did not want to do that. Nobody wants to do that, you know? But I said, man, this is an opportunity. And every day that I can walk into that studio is a privilege. Like most
Yeah.
people would love to be in the rooms that I'm in, working with the people I'm in. And maybe I'm tired right now. Maybe I just want to go to bed. But you know what? I need to understand the gift that I've been given and what a blessing this is. And so I said, yeah. And I went back and I went into that session and had a great session. And then I was in all the other sessions with that artist. And then there was collaborators that came in that I met and they went, hey, you know what? We want to do our album in here. Can you engineer for us? Yeah. Okay. Again, just saying yes. And part of me
Yeah.
is like, oh, how am I going to live up to their standards? And like, you know, that imposter syndrome. What if they find out I'm really not a good engineer? But okay, yeah, I'll be there. And I started to realize that all that self-doubt, there's things that other people see in you that you don't see in yourself. And at the end of the day, there was a reason they kept asking me to come back. It was the work I was doing had quality to it, maybe that I didn't even realize, you know?
Right.
And so it just one led to another, and it was those opportunities and saying yes and you know, trying to build relationships and be good to people.
Yes.
Not not
Yes.
not just as, oh, it's my friend, it's my industry contact or whatever. Like, no, that's my friend, right? Before everything
Right.
else. And I
Yes.
think maintaining those kind of relationships has definitely helped me, because I get calls randomly from people that I'll check in with people just as friends, like, how's it going? How's life? What's going on with you? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, things are good. What do you need? And I was like, I have no reason to hit you up other than I'm saying hi. Like, I just want to make sure you're good, you know? And so when there is something that they're like, oh man, 7 would be really great for this project, they hit me up. You know, I get people hit me up way more than I reach out or advertise or anything like that. So um
Good. Congratulations. I'm so happy
thank you.
for you. So
Thank you.
now
Yeah.
you're in LA. Now you're in San Diego.
San Diego. Yeah.
So how did you get there?
So I also work with, yeah.
Right.
And
Yes.
so I'm doing some work with that here, that brought me to San Diego, and either I'm going to stay here or at the end of the year I might go back to LA. So we'll see what happens.
Do you like it there? Are you enjoying it?
I am loving it. When you and I saw each other, I'd been here a week. Like I'd just gotten here.
No, you said that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So now it's been a month that I've been here, and I've been hiking and gone to the beach, and I'm supposed to go to Comic-Con today. I think that's on my.
Andy was there.
Oh, really?
Andy, yes, he's playing in a band called Cold Sliver.
Okay.
They just mentioned him on CNN. They were like, he's like doing some kind of G.I. Joe thing. I
Oh,
don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I've
No,
never
it's
been, and apparently, you know, I've been to other comic conventions, but apparently that's the one to go to. Um, so I'm supposed to go to that today. I think as soon as we wrap up, I'm gonna
well,
see what
go
that's.
do it, darling. Have some fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks for doing this with me. It's been really great talking to you.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm so pleased to have like run into you in San Diego and now we're here talking and we're going
Yeah,
to stay in touch.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, very
All
cool. Well,
right.
thank you. And that's it for us. I'm gonna hit stop here.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Yes, Quit Your Day Job. Huge thanks to Lucia Cifarelli for joining us and keeping it 100% real. Don't forget to check out her new solo record, No God Here. It's streaming now, and it's an absolute must-hear. Now, follow us on social media at 7Dunbar and at Factor Studios. And as always, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a drop. Until next time, keep creating, keep grinding, and never forget, you don't need permission to be powerful.